Hey, it's Chris with Tactical Defense Institute. I had an email from a student who's setting up his first rifle and kind of prompted me to do a video about some of my rifle setups. But then he started asking questions about suppressors, and I threw out some terms that I realized not everybody knows, right? He was like, oh, what does that mean, right? Explain it to me. So here's a quick little breakdown of suppressor mounting and what is the hub system, right? The hybrid universal base, I think is what hub stands for. So let's talk about that a little bit. So the first thing I'm gonna look at is one of my first cans is a Silencer Co. Spec War 556K. This is kind of the traditional can before the hub compatible cans came out. The base and the mounting system is part of the can, right? So it's a Silencer Co. can. You have to run a matched Silencer Co. ASR device for this can because it's an ASR mounting system, right? The active spring retention. You can't change it out. If you want to run this can, you have to have an ASR mount. What does an ASR mount look like? Right, here's an old one I pulled off of a gun a while back. Right, so it slips over, right, does a couple rotations, right, I think it's 2.5 turns. When it hits and basically bottoms out with a taper inside, it's got a locking collar, boom, you lock it on and life is good, right? But you are stuck into that muzzle device, right? So what if you have a rifle that doesn't use that muzzle device? Maybe it's a 14.5 that's pinned and welded, or you want to get a different can from a different company other than Silencer Co. that doesn't use ASR, right? Mounting platforms. In the last couple of years, we've seen suppressor companies realize that if they can have interchangeable bases with a common thread platform, it allows the end user to buy a wider variety of suppressors to use with whatever their existing mounting platform or muzzle devices are, right? And that is the hub system that they came out with. So one of the cans I bought a couple years ago was this Yankee Hill R9, right? It's kind of a great all-around can. Does a lot of different things. It's rated for a lot of different calibers based on muzzle length. Price isn't too terrible. And I started out to where I could run this being a 9mm. It is rated for 300 blackout. It's rated for 7.62 by 39. And it's also rated for 308. Oddly enough, it's a pretty robust can. And I had virtually all ASR platform, muzzle devices. So I ended up on my MP5 putting just a little single port comp. Why just a little single port? One of the things I found is certain suppressors don't have enough length inside to accommodate every single type of muzzle device that's out there, right? So if I was running, say, a ASR flash hider like this one, or a longer 6-port ASR compensator like this right here, right? It's considerably longer, right? Kind of get that little close up so you can see what I'm talking about. It actually wouldn't mount all the way down tight. I could get it to where it could lock on, but it wasn't as, it was maybe only 2 turns or 2.25 instead of the full 2.5 where the taper mount bottoms out. And if you can't get all the way on, that's a recipe for a potential baffle strike or bad things happening, right? So I ended up going with, well, I needed ASR, right? This little single port. But one of the beauties of the MP5, which is what this eventually was planning on going on, is the classic tri-lug mount, right? The early MP5s, the first suppressors out for them, the tri-lug is classic. It's great. It works well, and again, MP5, tri-lug, they go hand in hand, right? It's just kind of a sweet setup. And this came factory with the tri-lug mount on it, my PTR, right? So where did that lead me? Well, the Yankee Hill R9 does not come with any specific muzzle device base to it. It is a hub compatible can, but the hub is right here. The original hub, it's a 1.375 by 24 thread, the hub thread, the standard, but this came as a direct thread base, right, for this suppressor. So all I had to do was say, I want to go tri-lug. I'm going to buy a tri-lug mount base for this hub compatible can. Yankee Hill made one, right? A lot of companies make one. I took the standard direct thread base out, buy a hub compatible tri-lug base for this suppressor, put it on, you know, torque it if you want to rock set it or do whatever you want for thread locking, whatever your heart's content, that's great. Voila, I just took this from what was direct thread, what did have an ASR Bravo mount, which I was getting rid of. Again, I had a hub compatible Bravo mount, took it off. It now goes to the Tri-Lug, which is kind of the classic MP5 setup, right? So just quick on, that turn, quick off, the beauty of the Tri-Lug for running the MP5. So that's the nice thing that the hub system does. It allows you to pick the can that you want from the from the manufacturer that you want, and as long as there's a hub compatible base and it's a hub compatible can, you can mix and match a lot of different muzzle devices. Right, so I had mentioned that I had a Silencer Co. Bravo mount on that Yankee Hill R9, right? I wanted to use that for something else. I ended up picking up a 6mm ARC that already had a Lantac Dragon ASR muzzle device on the Proof Research barrel. So I looked at it and said, you know what? I'm probably going to run this suppressed, and it's already an ASR. I was switching my R9 to Tri-Lug mount anyway. The Silencer Co. Bravo mount hub is the right hub for the can I'm going to put on this thing. I ended up getting an Otter Creek Labs Polonium 30, right, which is right here. Again, it came with a direct thread base, which is a hub compatible can. Take the direct thread base out. I put in the ASR Bravo mount into the can, right, using that hub compatible thread pitch, screws right into it, even though it's not a Silencer Co. can. Boom, you put it on. I now have an ASR mounting system for an Otter Creek Labs can, right, which works out great. It's been a beautiful can on this setup. It's extremely accurate, right, extremely quiet, locks on, boom, there we go, right? And then I can kind of mix and match and go, okay, it was a Lantac base. Well, you know what? This can already has a ASR Bravo mount. So if I'm going to build something new, if I want to use this can, I can go with the ASR mounting system. If I want to use one of my different cans, I can go with a different mounting system, right? A Tri-Lug or a whatever, right? This is just a muzzle device I took off of a rifle I bought. It's a Keymod, one of their chemo flash hiders, right? Say that I wanted to use this on a hub compatible can that came from somebody else, take the base out by the appropriate hub for chemo muzzle devices, the chemo flash hider, screw it into whatever can that is, boom, I can mount that can onto the chemo flash hider, right, because it's a hub compatible system. Right? So it allows you to do a little more mixing and matching to get the can that you want for the application that you want, but it doesn't necessarily lock you into a specific mounting platform, right? That you can only buy cans from that company because that's how they mount up, like it was back in the days of this spec war where it was all part of one system. So a couple things to think about when you go buy cans, right? You know, find a good quality gun shop, a knowledgeable staff gun shop. I have my favorite that I like to go to, and the guys are really good. They know what's up. They are very well versed in the different types of cans, the different mounting platforms of the hub compatible cans, the back pressure, then, you know, what are they rated for? And you can do some mixing and matching to find out what works with your system, right? And it just makes for an all-around better experience. So that's a little bit about the hub system, right? It's nice. You can pick the can you want, match it to the muzzle device you want, and most of the time, right, they will work. Like I said, maybe the length of a certain muzzle device might be too long to fit into that can, even with the appropriate hub. Sometimes you got to do a little research, but it does allow for a lot more options when you are setting up that muzzle device with your can. Especially when you're buying something that's pinned and welded. The student that emailed me is looking at a 14.5 that has a pinned and welded, I think it's one of the newer Gemtech muzzle devices on it. He was concerned that he'd be locked into Gemtech only cans. Well, if the Gemtech can, right, or hub compatible, I should say, if Gemtech makes a hub base, right? And that 1.375 by 24 thread pitch, he could use that on somebody else's can to run on that new 14.5 he's looking at that has the Gemtech muzzle device. So if you got any questions, right, hit us up in the comments. Any feedback for us, hit that like and subscribe button. Hope to see you in our TAC Rifle 1 class in May of 2026. And thanks a lot. Stay safe. Get out there and train.